Welcome to the Profits in Pajamas podcast. I'm Danielle D, or Coach Danni D, and I help women entrepreneurs and professionals to achieve their personal success stories that include joy, fulfillment, and balance. This is where we talk about how to build your business in a way that allows you to work with ease, be successful, and enjoy your life. My happy place is spending as much time in my PJs as humanly possible. And I want to help other women find their happy space while running profitable businesses or having a successful career. So get comfortable and let's dig in. Hello and welcome to the Profits in Pajamas podcast. I am your host, Coach Danni D, always here helping small business owners, professional women in leadership just to find that place of balance. Find that place of balance so that you can live a joyful and fulfilled life right now, today, and that you can, enjoy yourself in the current, right? So today I'm gonna get a little personal. And I really want to talk about God and my relationship with God and the season that I feel like that I am in this moment. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I have a lot of conversations all the time. I told y'all I'm the person that people just randomly in the grocery store, or someone may meet me one time and share their deepest, darkest secrets. I used to be kind of bothered by that, not in like a bad, it just was a little off putting to me because I'm very quiet usually, and when I'm not intentionally engaging. So it kind of threw me off for a while. And then I realized that that was something that that was one of the many gifts that God gave me, was the ability to be kind, be open, be that listening ear for people that need that. Um, but that wasn't where I was going. I'm just sharing that to say, in having a lot of those conversations, I realized that we as humans often struggle with uncertainty. We often struggle with navigating the messy parts of life, right? Like everything is not always clean, everything is not always straightforward. We may not always see what the pathway forward is and what it will look like. But, as faith believers, and I understand everybody may not be a faith believer, please don't disregard, um, because I feel like there's messages in things that may resonate with you, even if this is not your faith belief, right? But as faith believers, we say that we believe in God, we believe in the bigness of God, we believe in the greatness of God. But how true is that if we don't believe that when He said that He would pull us through, that He was telling the truth? We tend to, start to lean on our own understanding. We start to try to, manipulate situations, try to navigate situations, and without His guidance, when we feel like things are getting uncomfortable, when we feel like it's, taking too long, or we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? I jokingly say all the time, Lord, that light bill is due at midnight on the first. And sometimes the Lord wants to, swoop in at 11:59. And Hey, it's before midnight, right? But we get uncomfortable, we get uneasy in those situations, and we start to navigate different, do things very differently when we are uncomfortable, when we are made to wait, when we are made to trust, when we are made to actually lean in on that faith that we said that we have, right? The other side of that is God tells us, girl, go out there and do that big, bold, crazy thing. I got you. And we go ask everybody else's opinion. We go do everything else but what he told us to do because that big thing sounds scary. But again, let's bring it back to faith. What type of faith are we carrying if we're not moving boldly in the way that he has instructed us? And I'm saying that from a place of being guilty, just like everyone else. But that's what I've been reflecting on is how much faith is that, right? And what I know is when I do take those bold steps, when I do step forward in faith, I have always received little indications that this is going in the right direction, or big indications in some instances that this is going in the right direction. So, if that's the case, then why don't we stay on that path, right, of faithfulness? Why do we allow fear to separate us from what God has designed for us? So, in this season, so I told y'all, um, I suck with time after COVID. I believe like a year or two ago, my mantra for the year was, I'm gonna stop playing in God's face, right? And that was what that was all about, was about being faithful, being obedient. And I'm still on that walk. I'm still working through that journey because there are moments where I kind of backslide and I don't even realize it. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, you need to get back out there. You need to, do those things and be more um committed to what God has assigned to you, right? So, but one of the things that I learned in that season, right, is I realized that, yes, I needed to work on my faith. I needed to work on really activating my faith because we talk about faith all the time as Christians, but are you really truly activating your faith? Because if you are still in the same spot that you were, last year, last month, last week, you probably are not activating that faith. And I don't mean that, this is not about arbitrary metrics. Like it's not about the amount of money that's in your bank account. I'm not, because that's not everybody's path, and that's not always the best indicator. That's not what I mean. I mean, if you don't feel different, if you are not moving differently, if you are not um moving in a more bold way than you did, before, then you're probably not activating that faith, right? If God gave you an assignment and you've been just sitting on it, it's been collecting dust, you're not activating that faith. You need to go find that assignment, dust it off, and figure out what's step one. And you don't necessarily have to go from step one to complete today, but do step one. Do step one. God told you could get all the way to the end. So you already know that this vision that you have has been ordained, right? You already know that you know what the outcome is going to be. yet you still are fearful to take the step. So that's a faith thing. That I mean, at the end of the day, that is a faith thing. And I've been very reflective on that over the last couple of years and just, pulling myself back into action, faith, and kind of reminding myself how silly does it sound that I have this big old God that could do everything. And I'm questioning whether or not he can make this happen for me when he told me he could. How silly does that sound, right? So that's the first part of it. Are you being faithful? Are you being obedient? Are you really trusting God? And sometimes I think we trust God, but we don't trust ourselves. But He made us. He made us, and He is going to fill whatever gap that we are lacking. So I need you to dust off. Or maybe go sit with God again and, you know, start with an apology. Start with an apology and ask him to order your steps. The other thing that I want to speak on about this, and it's come up several times in the last couple of weeks, different content that I've, seen or whatever. And it's something, y'all know how I feel about my grandma. It's something that my grandma said years ago. And it took for me to be an adult to really understand it fully. But she used to pray all the time. Our grandmother was um, Baptist, converted to Catholic for my grandfather, and so she was just Baptist in the Catholic Church, right? It was an interesting experiment about religion, and it probably shaped a lot of how I view religion, and my ability to question things and find ways to make it make sense for me, right? But anyways, in the Catholic Church, when they do the prayers, they will say the prayers of the faithful, and each week is something different. Pray for this or pray for that or whatever. And when they would say whatever the response was, like each week it may be different, but the generic response would be, "Lord, hear our prayers." And my grandmother would always say, "Thy will be done." And one day I asked her, I was like, "Grandma, why you in this people church saying your own thing, right?" And she said, "We spend too much time trying to tell God what to do. And instead, we should be asking Him for His will to be done." And that concept has come up several times over the last week, and it just brought that back up to me. And in this season, that is the prayer that I have been praying, because sometimes we do get caught up in our own thoughts, our own agenda, or what we think success looks like, right? What we think um, is the way that we should go, or what somebody else has told us is the path that we should go. And it is not what God wants for us. Maybe it's what we want for ourselves, but it's not what God wants for us. And because we are so insistent upon that and pushing towards that, a lot of times we're missing what's right in front of us that God wants for us. And what God wants for us is always 10 times greater than what we could ever imagine for ourselves. There are so many instances in my life where that is absolutely true, that what I envisioned and what God had in store were light years different. And I don't even want what I wanted anymore after I saw what God wanted for me. So I challenge you to sit and pray for God's will to be done, for God to speak to you on how he wants you to go, for him to order your steps, and then for you to be obedient to that, even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if it pulls you in a direction you never thought that you would go in, but that might be the very space that you most need to be. So, yeah, God's will be done. Sit with God, find out where He wants you to go, how He wants you to move. And, the thing that I learned about God is He's not going to tell you the whole thing. He's not going to tell you the whole thing, but He's going to tell you as much as you need to know in the moment, and act upon that and move in that direction and know that the next steps are coming. They will be revealed when they need to be revealed. And, just on that same vein, like I mean, multiple times, but this one instance stands out where I had somebody ask me to pray for their marriage right after they told me the most insane, the most insane scenario. And I told them that I would pray that God gave them guidance, because I don't know that God wanted that marriage, right? And I'm not saying that He did or He didn't, but it did not feel right to pray for it. So I prayed for guidance, because God will give you guidance on how to move. So that part. The biggest thing that I've learned in this season, and I'm considering this season probably the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. The biggest thing that I've learned in this season of, you know, trying to stay obedient, trying to lean in on that faith, the biggest thing that I've really learned is peace be still. My grandmother would love like old school gospel music. I mean, it wasn't old school to her, right? Um, and she was a big James Cleveland fan, and he has that song "Peace Be Still." I think I've talked about it before on the podcast. And it comes from the Bible story of Jesus and the disciples being on the water, and the storms are raging, and they are freaking out. And Jesus is just as chill as all get out. And they are like, "What is wrong with you? How are you calm in this moment?" And it's because he knew who had control. And that has been the most challenging but rewarding lesson of this season, is learning how to be calm even in the face of things that are not calm. Learning to lean on that faith and know that while this situation is tumultuous, this situation is challenging, and knowing that a different version of myself would be full of anxiety, stress, all of this, and letting this version of myself sit in the calmness of knowing who has control. Now, that being said, still human, still a person. And I still have moments of weakness. I still have moments of doubt. I still have moments of fear. And what I've learned in this season is to take those moments, to turn those moments. I'm sorry, I'm realizing that my computer is not plugged in and I do not want to lose y'all. Um, but to take those moments and to turn those moments. Sorry about that. The old folks will say the devil is busy. Whenever you are speaking too much of God, the devil does show up, but that's okay. So what I was about to say is what I've learned to do is to take those moments of uncertainty, to take those moments where I feel like I'm, anxious or fearful or whatever it is, to take them directly to God. And I've learned in this season to pray differently, to be honest in my prayer. I think that we, tend to have this kind of formal relationship with God, or, when you talk sometimes to church folk, they like, um, just give it to God or just, whatever, and kind of dismiss the human element of how you feel, the emotions of how you feel. Like, that gets dismissed. And in that dismissing that, sometimes we're sitting with that and we're not processing it, right? So we're just feeling this disconnect because, well, maybe I'm not a good enough Christian because I feel uncertain or I'm scared or whatever, but you're just human. And so I just decided to just pray differently and have different conversations with God. So now my conversations are exactly that. Whatever it is that I am struggling with on that day, then I am going to say to God, I start my day off with gratitude and prayer. And after I finish thanking God and asking God to cover those that need covering, I I'm going to then say, God, like, yesterday was just a, busy day of like in and out and running errands and stuff like that. And so there were a couple of things I wanted to do that I didn't get done. And so today I prayed for focus. Also ADHD, right? So sometimes I can be hyper focused and then sometimes I'm like la 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 la. So I prayed for focus and execution today. Um, there are days when I, feel anxious and I pray that God calms my anxiety because I know that He is going to deliver, but I'm currently feeling anxious. So be honest with God. Be honest with yourself about how you're feeling. You can only process how you're feeling when you're being honest. And when you're being honest, sometimes you uncover the thing that you need to push forward, right? Because sometimes you may feel a certain way, and because you're not exploring it, because you're pushing it down and not exploring it, you may realize that the way that you feel is honestly a symptom of something else. Like, people may feel uncomfortable in certain situations. It might be fear. It might actually just boil down to fear that you are scared to step into the next phase, the next version of yourself. But you're never going to realize that if you keep pushing those emotions down or trying to, just bully yourself into the, that you're, faithful, right? You have to address it. You have to deal with what you feel and why you feel that way if you want to be able to really fully connect and really fully engage. So that's what I got for you. That's what I got for you today. Just needed to get that out there because it was just so many things swirling around in my world um that was bringing me here. And then I feel like that there's someone that needed to hear this today. So go forward, be, reconnect with God, reconnect with God. And I think sometimes people think like unless they have, you know, left the church, if you're a churchgoer or left, that they are not disconnected from God. You could be sitting in the front row and be disconnected. You could talk to God every day and be disconnected because you're not being fully honest in the conversation. And there's always deeper that you can go with God. So sit with God today, reconnect, reflect on the downloads He's giving you and where He wants you to go, and start moving boldly in those directions. All right. go do that. Also, go find something that brings you joy today. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to the Prophets in Pajamas podcast. I hope you got some great tips to start working with these. Want to stay connected? Follow me at Your Workflow on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. For more information about creating balance in your life, register for my upcoming calendar detox challenge at CoachDanniD.com. Don't forget to subscribe, join the community, and book a call to find the workflow program that best fits your needs.